Ladies and gentlemen, greetings from the United Nations in New York. All courtesies observed. In the IPCC's special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees Celsius, the collective best of the world's environmental scientists conveyed some dire conclusions. To paraphrase one of the key findings of the report, coral reefs will have basically died away once we surpass global warming of 2 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Obviously, for that to happen would be utter catastrophe, with the resulting loss of some 30% of the ocean's remaining biodiversity, and who knows what consequences for the ocean's ecosystem, an ecosystem upon which we depend for every second breath we take. But the truly stark predicament confronting us is that thanks to humanity's tragic addiction to fossil fuels, we are currently on course for a world not of 1.5 or 2 degrees above pre-industrial levels, but towards one of 3 to 4 degrees. Make no mistake, the great enemy of a healthy ocean, and therefore a healthy planet, is the sickening trend of our greenhouse gas emissions. Thanks to our atmosphere heating GHG emissions, the ocean is steadily becoming hotter, so that the quantity of life-giving oxygen within it is dropping. Species are migrating from the heat, ocean currents are changing, and sea levels are inexorably rising. Ladies and gentlemen, only solid ocean science can measure, interpret, and forecast the extent of these changes and what their implications will be. Thus, we must scale up the deployment of our best scientific processes and, with unbending political will, equip ocean science with the resources it needs to help us steer away from impending tragedy. I've said many times now that when you're sick, you go to the doctor for diagnosis and treatment. We have observed the decline in ocean's health for some time now, so it's safe to say it's time to call a doctor. At the UN Ocean Conference in Lisbon, 2nd to the 6th of June next year, the conference theme will be scaling up ocean science. And calling in the doctor is basically also why the UN General Assembly has mandated the UN Decade of Ocean Science, 2021 to 2030. Get it right, and by the end of the decade, we'll have all the scientific information and analysis we need to make the right decisions on treatments to reverse the decline in the ocean's health. Thus, we must take every step necessary to ensure there is no undershooting of ambitions for the success of the UN Decade of Ocean Science, and that our doctors, in other words, our marine scientists around the world, are fully equipped for the monumental task at hand. Ladies and gentlemen, in May this year, I was privileged to attend the first global planning meeting of the Decade of Ocean Science. This gathering provided a forum for some 200 leaders from ocean science and technology, from businesses and industries, from NGOs and civil society, philanthropies, donors, and those responsible for ocean policy and sustainable development. Since then, the consultative and planning process of the Decade's preparatory phase has been diligently pursued at a regionally driven approach. Regional workshops have and are continuing to be held to engage and consult with ocean stakeholders across the globe to ensure the Decade has foundations that, when put to the test, prove true. Credible scientific consensus leads us to the conclusion that what happens in the next decade may be more important for humanity than all that has befallen us these last many thousand years. This then is the setting of the UN Decade of Ocean Science, a setting from which the findings of science will guide us through the tough decision-making processes that will be required to provide the future well-being of life on planet Earth. Ladies and gentlemen, the choice is not between optimism and pessimism. It's between inaction and apathetic inaction. So let it be rightful action. The good news is that we have a universal global plan in place. We have the Paris Climate Agreement, the UN's 17 Sustainable Development Goals, and the mosaic of international conventions and agreements that underlay them. Faithfully implemented, the plan will secure a planetary environment in which our children and theirs can continue to flourish. So I urge you all to leave this workshop as hard-nosed pragmatists, with shoulders to the communal wheel, doing what we all know to be the right thing to do, which is to stick to our universal plan and implement it with integrity of purpose and will. I thank you.